The moons of Sereth hung quietly over a dead world. Long after the war ended, only ruins and whispers remained. The alien survivors had gathered in what was left of their cities, waiting. They waited for months, watching the black sky, searching for one small hope. A rescue ship, a human shuttle, a signal that said Earth still lived. But all they saw was silence, and the stars had forgotten their names. Captain Lyra stood on a metal platform high above the broken city. She was once the commander of the joint Earth-Sereth Defense Fleet. Now she was just another soul trapped under the weight of defeat. Her antennae twitched as the wind howled through the empty streets. Her people whispered behind her. "The humans are gone," they said. "The war ended them." But Lyra refused to believe that, because she had seen their spirit once. She had fought beside them, bled beside them. And she knew one thing. Humans never truly disappear. Every night, the survivors scanned the horizon. Their machines, half-broken, kept listening for signals. They caught ghost frequencies, static noise, and sometimes the echo of old human songs. It was as if the universe itself missed them. One night, a faint ping echoed through their radio towers. The signal was weak, almost like a heartbeat. At first, the engineers laughed. "It's interference," they said. But then the signal repeated, and coordinates began to form. Lyra's eyes widened, her chest tightening as she read the numbers. It was coming from deep space, from the direction of Sol, the human home system. The colony went silent. Everyone gathered near the giant holomap, flickering in the dusty control hall. The coordinates blinked again, glowing faintly blue. Then, for the first time in years, a voice broke through the static. It was calm, heavy, and filled with a strength they had forgotten. The voice said, "This is Earth Command. We received your call. Prepare for arrival." Gasps spread through the hall. Lyra froze. The humans were alive. But something in that voice was different. It was not desperate, not fearful, not weak. It carried command, authority, power. It felt like the kind of tone that came before a storm. The next few hours felt like years. Scanners detected movement near orbit, but no one could see clearly through the storming clouds. Lightning flashed across the red horizon as the wind howled louder. The alien children hid behind their parents. Soldiers ran to man old anti-air batteries, not out of fear, but instinct. Then the ground began to shake. The old towers groaned as vibrations rippled through the city. Someone shouted, "It's entering atmosphere." And then they saw it. Through the dark sky, something enormous descended. Not a shuttle, not a rescue ship, a giant, armored vessel with glowing blue engines. The hull shimmered like silver fire. Symbols of Earth burned across its side. The old flag, the crest of the human defense fleet. The ship's guns were quiet, but its presence screamed of power. The air itself bent under its gravity, dust rising in swirling halos beneath it. Lyra stepped forward, unable to breathe. She whispered, "That's not a transport." Another soldier whispered, trembling, "That's a warship." For a long moment, no one spoke. They had waited for survivors. They had prayed for peace. But Earth had not come to seek refuge. Earth had come ready for war. The ship hovered above the city, silent, like a mountain in the clouds. Then the voice returned, booming across every frequency. "This world once helped us stand," it said. "Now we help it rise again." The ship released beams of light, scanning the ruins, identifying the fallen structures. Its lower decks opened, revealing smaller crafts descending like fireflies in formation. Every one of them carried the mark of Earth. The survivors fell to their knees, watching as the sky filled with blue light and thunder. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of something stronger, hope mixed with awe. She whispered softly, "They didn't die, they rebuilt." As the great ship landed, the ground glowed beneath its engines. And for the first time in a decade, the people of Sereth felt warmth again. Humanity had returned. Not broken, not begging, but powerful, determined, unstoppable. They had waited for survivors. But what they received instead was Earth. And Earth was ready for war. The great human warship hung above Sereth's sky like a second moon. Its engines hummed softly, shaking the ruins below. For hours, no one moved, no one spoke. The survivors simply stared, afraid to even breathe. They had waited so long for a sign of life, and now that it was here, it felt unreal. Captain Lyra stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the glowing ship. She tried to speak, but her voice trembled. The old communication tower beside her flickered, ancient circuits coming to life. A transmission was being received again. The sound was clearer this time, deeper, and it carried that same calm human tone. "This is Earth Command," the voice repeated. "Do not be afraid. We come as allies." Lyra's hands shook. She pressed the comm switch. "This is Captain Lyra of the Sereth survivors. Earth, is it really you?" she asked. Static filled the air, and then a reply came, simple and direct. "Affirmative, Captain, humanity endures." The crowd below gasped. Children cried out in wonder as the alien soldiers dropped their weapons. Some fell to their knees, whispering prayers to whatever gods still listened. They had thought humans were gone forever, destroyed by the Galactic Union's final strike. But now, the humans were back, and they weren't hiding anymore. As the warship hovered, hundreds of drones detached from its underbelly. They formed glowing patterns in the sky, scanning the surface for energy readings. Lyra watched as the machines repaired old transmitters and power lines. They worked fast, efficient, like they had done this 1,000 times before. It was not a rescue mission, it was a reclamation. Her second officer, Arvin, stepped beside her, whispering. They rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. How did they even survive? Lyra stared at the sky, her voice soft. Because they're human. The words felt heavy, full of both fear and admiration. The humans had once promised they would never fall, and somehow, they kept that promise. Then another message came through. "All Sereth survivors, prepare your landing coordinates. Our ground team will arrive shortly." The signal crackled, and for a moment, Lyra heard something strange in the background. A rhythmic tapping, almost like drums, steady and cold. Then silence again, but that small sound made her heart tighten. The scanners lit up once more, detecting movement in orbit. Dozens of smaller human ships began descending, forming a perfect pattern around the main vessel. It looked less like a fleet and more like a formation, disciplined, unified, alive. The clouds split apart as beams of light pierced through, turning night into blue day. The wind roared, the air vibrated with power. Every sensor in the control tower went red. Energy readings were off the charts. The old Sereth defense satellites, still active in orbit, began to melt under the pressure, their metal frames glowing bright before falling apart. The humans weren't even attacking. It was simply the power of their arrival. Lyra's engineers shouted warnings. Their energy output is beyond any known limit. But she already knew what it meant. Humanity had changed, evolved, adapted. Whatever Earth had become after the war, it was not the same fragile world they remembered. It had forged itself into something far more dangerous. Then, another transmission came through. This time, not from the ship, but from somewhere deeper in the signal. A distorted voice whispered through the static. "Not all survivors are what they seem," it said. "Some carry the mark of the ones who burned Earth." Lyra froze, her heart pounding. She turned to Arvin, but before she could speak, the signal cut off completely. The warship began to move again, its massive shadow rolling over the ruined city. A deep hum echoed across the valley, shaking glass and stone. Then, one by one, the smaller ships landed, sleek, silver, silent. Human soldiers stepped out, wearing dark armor with glowing blue symbols. Their faces were hidden behind mirrored visors, but every movement carried confidence and purpose. The aliens stared in awe, afraid yet fascinated. One human soldier approached Lyra and saluted. His voice was mechanical yet warm. "By order of Earth Command, Sereth is now under Terran protection." Lyra blinked, barely able to process the words. Humanity was not asking for help anymore. They were taking control. The humans turned their eyes toward the stars, scanning the skies beyond Sereth. They weren't here just to rescue. They were preparing for something bigger. Another war, another reckoning. As the last ship landed, the humans raised a massive beacon that glowed with Earth's insignia. The message was clear to every eye that looked up. Earth had returned, and the galaxy would soon remember why it once feared the name of humanity. The skies above Sereth still burned with blue light. The humans had landed, but their silence was heavier than any weapon. They moved through the ruins with calm precision, scanning every corridor, every wrecked structure. It was as if they knew exactly where to go, exactly what to find. Captain Lyra followed them, her heart torn between fear and fascination. She had once commanded beside humans, years ago during the Desolation War. She had seen their cities fall, their oceans burn, their people vanish into darkness. Everyone had believed Earth was gone. Nothing could survive that level of destruction. But somehow, the humans had endured, rebuilt, and returned stronger. Now, standing beside them again, Lyra understood why the galaxy once feared their resolve. A tall human officer approached her, his armor scarred but shining with blue symbols. "Captain Lyra of Sereth?" he asked, his voice deep and firm. "Yes," she replied quietly. "You are real, not a transmission." He nodded once. "We never stopped being real." His words sent chills down her spine. The humans began setting up strange devices around the ruins. Small metallic orbs that pulsed with white light and projected holograms into the air. Images of destroyed cities appeared. Human cities, once bright and full of life, now silent tombs. The soldiers stood quietly, their heads bowed. These were their ghosts, their fallen, their memories carved into machines. Lyra stepped closer to one of the holograms. It showed Earth's old capital, broken towers, shattered oceans, and clouds of ash covering everything. Her breath caught as she whispered, "You kept this." The officer beside her replied, "We kept everything, so we would never forget." His voice trembled for the first time, not with weakness, but with grief. Far above, the main battleship adjusted its orbit, casting long shadows across the surface. Its scanners were locking onto old energy sources buried deep underground. The humans called this operation Grave Fire. They weren't here to destroy, they were here to recover. Somewhere beneath the dust of Sereth, human technology from the last war still waited, forgotten. Suddenly, one of the scanning drones stopped. Its light turned crimson, signaling something unexpected. The ground shook lightly as buried metal began to stir. Lyra's soldiers raised their weapons, but the human officer raised his hand. "Stand down," he said calmly. Moments later, a massive hatch opened from the earth, revealing a sealed bunker door with human markings. The officer's eyes widened. "It's one of ours," he whispered. Dust cleared from the faded letters, reading, "Terran Exodus Unit 12. The aliens murmured among themselves, realizing what this meant. A human outpost had survived here, hidden beneath Sereth all this time. The warship above shifted position, sending a beam of light directly onto the bunker. The doors opened slowly, releasing a long, cold breath of air from the past. Inside, the corridors glowed with dim red lights. Frozen bodies of human soldiers lined the walls, perfectly preserved in cryo-sleep. Lyra gasped, "They there alive?" The officer nodded. They were left behind to guard what remained. He touched the control panel, and one by one, the pods began to light up. A low hum filled the room as the systems reactivated. The holographic projectors in their helmets flickered, replaying fragments of their last battle. Voices echoed through the hall, recordings of humans fighting to the very end. "Hold the line," one voice shouted, "for Earth." Even after death, their message still burned like fire. Lyra felt tears in her eyes. She had fought beside them once, and now she stood among their sleeping remnants. The officer looked at her, his expression cold but respectful. "These soldiers died believing someone would finish what they started," he said. "We are here to fulfill that promise." Outside, the alien survivors watched as human ships lifted massive crates from the ground. Inside those crates were weapons and technologies thought lost to time. The humans had buried their strength, only to dig it up when the galaxy least expected. They didn't rebuild in peace. They rebuilt in silence, in shadows, in exile. That night, the stars above Sereth shimmered brighter. The humans stood before the bunker, saluting the sleeping heroes beneath. Lyra whispered, "Ghosts of the fallen," and the officer nodded slowly. "They're not ghosts," he said. "They're reminders. Reminders that humanity never surrenders, never forgets, never forgives." As the night deepened, the old bunker sealed once more. The humans raised a new flag beside it, the emblem of the United Terran Fleet. The galaxy had killed Earth once, but the ghosts of humanity had risen from the ashes. And this time, they weren't just here to survive. They were here to reclaim every world that had forgotten their name. Dawn never truly came to Sereth. The sky stayed gray, painted with dust and the faint blue glow of human engines. The ruins were quiet, too quiet, as if the whole planet was holding its breath. Lyra stood near the old city's edge, watching the Terran soldiers prepare their positions. Their movements were silent, controlled, and cold, a kind of discipline that came only from endless war. The humans had uncovered their lost bunker, and now, everything had changed. Their commander, Admiral Cole, had arrived, tall, calm, eyes sharp as blades. He stood on the landing platform as holographic maps hovered before him. Blue lines traced across the planet's surface, showing dozens of hidden enemy signals. The remnants of the alien coalition that once helped destroy Earth were still out there. And now, they were watching, waiting, afraid. Lyra approached carefully, bowing her head. Admiral, the colonies nearby are transmitting warnings. They say the old Union fleets are gathering again. Cole didn't look away from the map. They never learn, he said softly, and that's why they will fall again. His voice was calm, but every word carried power like thunder. The Terran soldiers moved with machine-like precision. They set up ground beacons that glowed with blue light, linking into the orbiting battleship above. Lyra had never seen coordination like this. Even in the old Alliance days, the humans had never fought with such unity. Now they were one, not divided nations, not scattered survivors, but a single force forged in loss. Without warning, the clouds above began to spin. Thunder rolled across the valley, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Lyra looked up and saw the main battleship's weapons ports open for the first time. A deep hum filled the air, low, powerful, terrifying. She whispered, "They're charging their cannons." Arvin, standing beside her, muttered, "Against what?" "There's no enemy in sight." Cole answered without turning, "There will be." Moments later, the first threat arrived. Dozens of alien warships dropped out of warp above the planet. They bore the symbols of the old coalition, the same that once burned Earth to ash. Their commanders demanded surrender, sending warnings across every frequency. But Earth didn't respond, not with words, not with fear. Admiral Cole raised his hand, and a single command echoed across the Terran fleet. "Strike," he said simply. The next moment, light filled the heavens. Beams of plasma as wide as mountains shot from orbit, slicing through the darkness. The first alien ship exploded instantly, scattering molten debris across the sky. Then the second, then the third. Each strike precise, merciless, perfect. The alien formation broke apart in panic. Their return fire barely scratched the Terran shields. The sound of explosions rolled across the horizon. On the ground, the soldiers watched in silence, their faces lit by the glow of burning skies. It was not a battle, it was an execution. Lyra covered her mouth, eyes wide with awe and fear. She had fought beside humans before, but never like this. These were not survivors. They were avengers, ghosts wrapped in steel. Admiral Cole finally spoke again. "This is only the beginning." He turned toward her, his eyes colder than starlight. "Earth remembers everything," he said, "and now the galaxy will remember us." Hours later, the smoke cleared. The enemy fleet was gone, nothing but drifting wreckage and fading fire. The humans didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. They moved immediately to rebuild the old Sereth defenses. Their discipline was terrifying in its focus. It wasn't revenge, it was purpose, pure and unstoppable. As night fell, the sky glowed faintly red from the battle still burning in orbit. Lyra walked among the Terran soldiers, watching them repair drones and reprogram shields. One of them noticed her gaze and said softly, "We don't fight for rage, Captain. We fight so no one ever burns Earth again." His words stayed with her long after he walked away. Later that night, Lyra stood by the command post as Admiral Cole watched the stars. She asked quietly, "What happens now?" He didn't look at her, only replied, "Now, we remind them why humanity was never meant to be underestimated." The wind carried his voice through the ruins. And as the stars reflected off his armor, Lyra realized something chilling. The humans had come not to end a war, but to begin one. Above them, Earth's battleship turned slowly toward the next sector. Its engines roared like thunder across the void. The message was clear to anyone who could hear it. The age of silence was over. Humanity had awakened, and the first strike had just begun. The battle was over, but the echoes of destruction still hung in the air. The ruins of Sereth glowed faintly from the fires that had fallen from orbit. The alien survivors stood among the debris, stunned and silent. They had seen fleets burn, skies torn apart, and stars dimmed by human wrath. The war was not a battle anymore. It was a statement. Admiral Cole stood on the upper command deck of the Terran battleship Vengeance Dawn. The glass around him shimmered with reflections of the planet below. He stared at the burning horizon, his face calm, but his eyes fierce. The galaxy had buried Earth once, but now, Earth had learned how to speak in thunder. "Prepare the broadcast," Cole ordered, and the crew responded instantly. Dozens of satellites aligned around the planet. Their lights pulsed blue, connecting to the deep network stretching across the stars. The voice transmission array, once a human peace beacon, had been reborn into something else. A message of power, not plea. Cole stood before the holo recorder, his uniform scorched from battle, his voice steady and cold. "This is Admiral Cole of the United Terran Fleet," he began. "To all worlds, to all empires, to every race that once stood against us. Hear this." The voice spread across the galaxy, carried through subspace like a storm. "Earth lives," he said simply, "and we remember." Across hundreds of systems, screens flickered to life. Alien leaders froze as the human face appeared. Cole continued, "You called it the Desolation War. You believed you erased us. You destroyed our cities, burned our seas, and silenced our children." His voice lowered, deep and sharp as steel. "But we rebuilt in the ashes, in the dark, far from your eyes. We learned, we endured, and we evolved." The message grew louder, echoing in every starship and control room. Humanity does not seek peace with those who fed on its pain. Humanity does not kneel before those who betrayed its kindness. We come not for surrender, not for forgiveness. We come for balance. Lyra stood at the edge of the command room, her heart racing. She could feel every word strike through the silence like thunder. Around her, the Terran crew worked without emotion. They were used to this. This wasn't just war. It was a reclamation of dignity. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's fire, and now it was being reminded. Cole's eyes softened for a moment, and his tone shifted. "But to those who never turned their weapons upon us," he said, "to those who still believe in unity, hope, and strength, Earth offers alliance, not destruction. Stand beside us, and together, we rise again." The broadcast reached the outer colonies, the trading worlds, the hidden systems. Everywhere the message traveled, it carried the same mix of awe and fear. Alien commanders whispered to one another, "If the humans have returned, then the balance of power is broken." The great empires trembled, their networks flooded with one word: Earth. Back on Sereth, the survivors watched the sky. The human ships hovered like silent gods above the clouds. Some aliens cried in relief, others in terror. They had waited for help, but what arrived was destiny itself. The era of human silence was over, and the voice of Earth was roaring through the void. When the broadcast ended, Cole stood silently for a long time. The crew waited for his next order. Finally, he said quietly, "They wanted our silence. Now they will live with our echo." He turned toward the viewport, where the reflection of Earth's flag shimmered in the stars. "Prepare the fleet," he said. "This message is only the beginning." Lyra walked closer, her voice soft. "Admiral, what happens if they fight back?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Then they'll learn what the word human truly means." Outside, the stars seemed to flicker, as if bowing to the sound of that promise. The Terran fleet began to move again, slow and powerful, their engines lighting the void. Behind them, the message of Earth continued to echo through the stars. Unending, unforgotten, unstoppable. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never sleep in peace again. The message of Earth echoed through the stars like a storm that would never fade. Empires trembled, fleets mobilized, and worlds that once mocked humanity now whispered its name with fear. But while fear spread, something else began to stir: hope. On Sereth, the aliens who had survived the old war gathered once again beneath the shadow of Earth's ships. They expected judgment, but what they saw instead was mercy. Admiral Cole stood before a hollow map of nearby systems. Each glowing red mark represented a world that had once taken part in Earth's destruction. "Some of them regret," said Lyra quietly. "Some only fear what comes next." Cole didn't answer at first, his gaze hard as metal. Then he said softly, "Fear is not what we want. Understanding is." The fleet divided, half moving toward the neutral zones, half staying to rebuild. Terran engineers worked alongside Seratha's workers, repairing cities long forgotten by time. Humans and aliens stood shoulder to shoulder, lifting beams, fixing roads, sharing rations. It was strange, surreal. The same humans who once fought like storms were now building with gentle hands. Lyra watched one of the soldiers kneel to help a Serath child fix a broken drone. For a moment, the universe felt calm again. But peace never comes without fire. Scanners soon detected movement, a massive alien fleet entering the system from the western edge. It was the Dominion, one of the strongest remnants of the old enemy alliance. They had heard the broadcast, and they came not with surrender, but defiance. "Target coordinates locked," the comm officer reported. Cole's expression didn't change. He simply said, "Hold position." The enemy ships appeared in the sky, black as shadows, their guns ready. They sent one message across the channel. "You cannot erase what we built, human." Cole looked up, calm and unshaken. "Then burn with it," he whispered. The order went through, but it wasn't an attack. Instead, Terran ships fired energy flares into the sky, marking boundaries, not targets. The enemy paused, confused. Cole opened the universal frequency and spoke. "This is Earth Command," his voice deep and steady. "We did not return to conquer. We returned to end the cycle of fear. You can choose peace, or you can choose your ashes." For a moment, no one replied. Then the Dominion flagship fired the first shot. It struck one of the Terran cruisers, shattering a section of its hull. Flames erupted, alarms blared, and the sky once again turned red. Cole's eyes hardened. Return fire. Precision only, no civilian targets. The humans moved like a storm contained inside glass. Their counterattack was fast, surgical, terrifying. They struck the Dominion fleet not to destroy, but to disarm. Each blast cut through enemy engines, leaving ships floating powerless in the void. Within minutes, the mighty Dominion was silent, crippled, and defeated. On the ground, the Serath survivors watched in awe. Lyra whispered, "They could have wiped them out." Arvin nodded, but they didn't. For the first time, the galaxy saw that Earth's new strength was not cruelty, but control. Humanity had learned that true power was not in destroying, but in choosing not to. After the battle, Terran medics deployed to the wrecked Dominion ships. They pulled wounded alien soldiers from the burning decks, treated them, fed them. The same enemies who once sought to erase humanity now stared in disbelief as humans saved their lives. Cole walked among them silently, his hands behind his back. He said to one injured alien commander, "We do not repeat your mistakes, we correct them." The alien lowered his eyes, whispering, "Perhaps we were wrong about you." Days passed, and the system stabilized. Seratha's cities began to glow again, powered by Terran reactors. Children laughed where there had once been silence. Lyra stood on a rebuilt tower, watching the sunrise shimmer across the horizon. Beside her, Cole finally allowed a small smile. "This is what they never understood," he said softly. "Humanity burns, but from its ashes, we build." The war wasn't over, not yet. There were still fleets to face and old wounds to heal. But on that day, for the first time in centuries, peace felt possible. The fire had not destroyed, it had redeemed. And across the stars, even the coldest hearts began to whisper, maybe humanity was never the monster. Maybe it was the mirror we all feared to face. The fleet prepared to move once more. Engines hummed, lights flared, and the banner of Earth shimmered above the clouds. Cole turned toward the sky, his voice calm and steady. "Redemption begins with fire," he said. And as the ships vanished into the stars, the light of Earth followed them. Brighter than war, stronger than vengeance, and eternal as hope. The war was over, at least for now. The stars above Serath shimmered brighter than ever before, reflecting off the armor of the Terran fleet. The smoke had cleared, and the once dead planet now pulsed with the rhythm of new life. For the first time in centuries, The silence of fear was replaced by the hum of rebuilding. The sound of hammers, laughter, and human voices mixing with alien tongues. Admiral Cole stood on the command balcony of Vengeance Dawn. The great warship hovered above the rebuilt capital like a silent guardian. Below, lights twinkled across the surface. Cities reborn, power restored, families returning. Cole looked down with quiet pride, his reflection blending with the glowing blue of Earth's insignia. Lyra approached slowly, her face calm, but her eyes shining. "Seraph lives again," she said softly. Cole nodded. "And so does Earth." He turned to the massive holomap before him. Dozens of star systems glowed in white, liberated, awakened, or reborn. But others still burned red, filled with remnants of old hatred. Cole's hand hovered over one of those red worlds. "We're not done," he murmured. Lyra frowned. "Do you think they'll attack again?" The Admiral shook his head, not out of courage, only out of fear. Outside, the fleet began to realign. Ships glided through the sky with elegance and precision. Each hull carried the flag of Earth, not as a symbol of war, but as a promise that humanity had returned, and this time, it would not vanish into silence. From every transmission hub, a signal went out, a soft melody mixed with human words. It wasn't a declaration or a threat, it was a message of existence. "We are here," the transmission said. "We endured, and we rise." Across the galaxy, that message reached countless worlds. Some watched with awe, others with fear, and some with tears. Planets that had once turned their backs on Earth now reopened their channels. Small colonies sent messages of peace, trade, and unity. Even the old Dominion, now humbled, asked for talks under the new Terran Code. The galaxy was shifting, slowly, powerfully, inevitably. On Serath's surface, life was returning. Children ran through the rebuilt plazas, playing under banners that bore both human and alien emblems. Old enemies now worked together, building homes from the same ruins they once fought over. Lyra stood among them, feeling the warmth of sunlight touch her skin for the first time in years. She looked up, watching a formation of Terran ships rise through the clouds. And for the first time, she smiled without fear. Later, that evening, Cole visited the memorial grounds. Rows of shining pillars stood under the starlight, engraved with the names of the fallen. Humans and aliens side by side, not divided by species, but united by sacrifice. Cole placed his gloved hand on one of the pillars and whispered, "You didn't die for nothing." Behind him, a young soldier said quietly, "Admiral, what will history call this day?" Cole turned, eyes steady. "It will call it the day humanity came home." Far above, the fleet began to move again. The engines glowed brighter than suns, carrying the message of Earth into the endless dark. They weren't searching for war anymore. They were searching for the lost. For every world that once believed humanity had perished. For every survivor who still looked at the stars and hoped. This was not vengeance. This was return. As dawn touched Serath once more, the sky turned gold and white. Cole stood at the viewport, watching the lights spread across the horizon. Lyra's voice echoed faintly beside him. "After all this time, they'll finally remember us." Cole smiled faintly. "No," he said. "They'll finally understand us." Because humanity was never about conquest or fear. It was about the will to rise, to rebuild, to forgive, and to never break. The great battleship rose higher, leaving behind trails of light that painted the morning sky. Children pointed upward, shouting with joy, their voices echoing across the valleys. And in that moment, Serath, once a tomb of ashes, became a symbol of rebirth. The fleet vanished into the heavens, leaving only light behind. And across the stars, in every language, one truth was whispered again and again. Earth had returned, and the dawn of humanity had begun.